I had been borderline obese. I never saw my weight as an issue. I just thought, you get older, you're supposed to get fatter. And I did.
Common belief, actually. The belief is usually we get fatter and we get weaker, our health declines.
Get chronic diseases, and that's the way it is, and that's the way it will always be. I've always asked myself the question, why?
All right, a little introduction before we get into today's episode. So I run these shows sponsor free. We will never take on sponsors because everything is self-funded through our Fit Vegan coaching program. So if you enjoy these shows, the best way to support is obviously to subscribe to the channel. But also, if you know anyone over the age of 50 that is looking to improve their body composition, combat sarcopenia, combat osteoporosis, get healthier on a whole food, plant-based lifestyle, to simply send them our way at fitvegancoaching.com, because we are the best in the world in helping people over 50 transform. We have over 1,000 transformation in 20 different countries. So simply send them our way. In addition to that, a percentage of our profit monthly goes towards supporting cancer patients with their treatments and bills and whatever they may need to support themselves and their family. So you're also supporting additional people outside of the work that we'd be doing in the program. That is all I have for you today, so enjoy the episode. So actually, before we dive into today's episode, I just want to quickly announce we are doing our only Fit Vegan workshop of 2025, which is going to take place on September 20th to 21st in Vancouver, BC. It's going to be an awesome time. To the event, we're going to bring you through multiple workouts. You'll get to have some hands-on coaching with our staff of Fit Vegan coaches. You'll get to connect with other like-minded individuals. You'll be able to eat Fit Vegan approved food. That's going to be whole food, plant-based, higher in protein. It's going to be an absolute blast. So if you want some more information on that, I invite you to check out the link down below in the description. We can only take on 30 members, 30 clients for the workshop. So if you are a Fit Vegan member, you do get a saving on the workshop. Just check the Fit Vegan app. If you're an alumni member as well, just reach out to us. We'll be able to give you the code so that you can save some funds. If you are a member, you want to bring a friend, you'll also be able to get a saving for your friends. And if you're from the public, the workshop is pretty cheap for everything that's going to be included in it as well. So you might as well join and come and join us and have an awesome time. And if you've been wanting to work with our Fit Vegan coaching program, might as well join and get the discount on the workshop. Again, spots are limited at a time of this recording. We only have about 15 spots left for the workshop because I announced it to our members first. So head down below to the link, check it out, and look forward to seeing you in Vancouver in person. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fit Vegan podcast. Today, I have a very special episode. We're diving into the inspiring story of one of our Fit Vegan success stories, Jeffrey, who at 74 years young, is showing that he's a living proof that it's never too late to transform your health, your strength, and your entire outlook on aging. So it's an interview between Jeffrey and Coach Hélène, one of our incredible Fit Vegan coaches. She sat down with Jeff for a powerful conversation about his journey from being a self-described couch potato and borderline obese to becoming a strong, fit, and incredibly self-motivated retiree. So in this episode, you'll hear how Jeff completely changed his lifestyle overnight after being inspired by Dr. Joel Fuhrman, reversed his cholesterol levels, dropped over 40 pounds, and built a lifestyle of fitness and plant-based eating that supports his longevity goals. You'll also hear his perspective as a former medical doctor and real estate investor, and how his sharp mindset and sense of identity helped him commit to his transformation. So what I love most about Jeff's story is his attitude. He doesn't make excuses, he's consistent, and he shows us all that getting stronger with age isn't just possible, it's powerful. So whether you're just getting started or wondering what's possible in your 60s and 70s, this episode is going to inspire you to rethink what's possible for your health. Let's dive into Coach Hélène's conversation with Jeff.
Hello, everyone. I'm Coach Hélène, and today I'm thrilled to be doing my first interview for the Fit Vegan with one of my gold star clients, Jeffrey Richet. Jeff started his journey with the Fit Vegan family on January 17th this year, 2025, and has worked diligently to get to where he is today, a strong, fit, motivated retiree who's more motivated than ever to continue on his journey to health, wellness, and longevity. Welcome, Jeff.
Hello, how you doing, Ellen?
I am doing great. I am so happy that we have this time together to kind of think about the whole journey that you've been on. And you've got so many interesting things to share as well with listeners. Some people might wonder, maybe I don't have weight to lose and I feel kind of okay. And And, do I really need a trainer? And what's body recomposition? What are the advantages and all of this? So we have plenty to talk about today.
Okay, I agree with you. There's a lot of those questions I had to answer for myself way back when, so I can certainly, relate to that for sure.
That's right. So let's start with the beginning. So, in the beginning of times, Jeff, so why is it that you felt the need or you got motivated to start with a personal trainer?
Well, yeah, good question. Probably the real answer is about 10 years ago, I started to change my lifestyle, and that I changed my diet. I changed my diet from what, 95 or 6% of people probably around the world eat to a whole food, plant-based diet with no oil, no salt, no sugar. And for me, it happened so quickly. I mean, literally overnight.
Mhm.
Some of my health markers were going down. Specifically, my cholesterol was going up very precariously and dangerously high. And I went to my doctor, and uh, my doctor at that time, took the attitude, well, just take medicine, which, as it turned out, was not going to work for me because I'm very anti-medicine, at least prescription medication. And which is interesting because my father used to be a pharmacist, but nonetheless, and I used to be a doctor. So, but
I,
I, so,
I was just smiling. I was going to say, didn't
yeah,
you get
yeah,
some
yeah.
medical training? Okay.
Long time ago, I used to be a doctor. I retired in my early 40s. But anyhow, um, so I somehow, well, my wife actually suggested, but sort of this doctor, that I see a cardiologist who basically specialized in cholesterol management. And without going into too much of the details, what the takeaway from that conversation was, I should eat more vegetables. I should learn to enjoy and eat more vegetables, which transcended through a lot of videos that I had watched on TV by Dr. Joel Furman, basically the whole food plant based lifestyle diet. And I thought about it for about 2 or 3 weeks, and it just made sense. Everything that I read and saw and heard just aligned with my mentality. And literally in one day, I said to myself, I can do this and I will do it. And I went to sleep. I told my wife, and I went to sleep whatever night that was. Woke up the next morning, and I was whole food plant based, no
So you
oil,
were
salt, and
you were
sugar.
committed overnight.
Basically, yeah, literally overnight.
For a
And
lot of for a lot of people, Jeff, turning that switch on, whether it's signing up for a race or changing a lifestyle or gaining, deciding to take on a habit, there's different mechanisms in place. But so for you, you were exposed, you had some health issues, then you were exposed to Dr. Fuhrman's
presentation,
teachings. You
yeah,
thought about it for 2 3 weeks, and
I
then
thought
somehow it percolated into you're waking up one morning and that's it, your whole
I
foods
was
plant
open.
based.
I was open to change. I wanted to improve my lifestyle markers. At the time, I didn't realize how serious or how precarious my elevated cholesterol readings were, but I knew it wasn't good. And I knew it wasn't getting better because if it was getting, and I just don't like prescription medication. So that really wasn't a serious option for me ever. So but my cholesterol management physician was concerned enough where he put me on a statin medication for a few weeks just to see if I could tolerate it. which I could, which I did, and I went back to see him after I forget 5 or 6 weeks, something like that, and I had changed my diet enough where my cholesterol significantly improved to a normal range. Wasn't what it is today. Now it's significantly better, but still, after 5 or 6 weeks, my cholesterol came down. And interestingly enough, my energy level in those, whatever, 5 or 6 weeks significantly got better. I mean, I felt stronger,
Hmm.
healthier, and I was not exercising with a coach at that time, but I just felt much better. And better enough where my cardiologist, cholesterol management guy, stopped. We agreed, I'd stopped the statins for that trial period. And over the course of 5, 6 months, I just lost weight. I lost like around 40, 45 pounds in about 5 or 6 months. I, I
That's a lot.
That's a lot. I had been borderline obese. I never saw my weight as an issue. I just thought, like I know many people do, that you get older, you're supposed to get fatter, and I did. And I didn't know. I mean, or,
Common belief, actually.
I
The
know it is.
belief is usually we get fatter and we get weaker, and our health
And
declines.
our health
That's
goes down,
common.
you get chronic diseases, and that's the way it is, and that's the way it will always be. And I always asked myself the question why. When I was a kid, 5, 10 years old, I always said to myself and my parents, why did so and so die? Well, they had a heart attack, they had cancer, they had, high blood pressure, whatever the case may be. I don't know. Well, okay. So then the next logical question is, why did so and so get a heart attack? Why did they get cancer? Why do they have high blood pressure? No answers. Nobody had an answer for me except that's the way it is. Well, why is it that way? There is
Right.
a reason. And but I didn't really know what the reason was because nobody could give me an answer. And but over the course of now the 5 to 6 months, going back close to 10 years ago, I just felt better. Aside from the weight reduction, which was nice, that really wasn't my objective. My objective was to lower my cholesterol, but all my health markers got better and better and better, and I just felt better. I felt younger. I felt
Hmm.
stronger. I felt healthier. Uh, Attitude wise, I just felt much improved. And it was clearly working. Whatever I was doing, whatever I was eating, or perhaps not eating now, you know, it was okay. It was working. I used to love eating ice cream, Ben and Jerry's ice cream, and all that stuff. I don't eat it anymore. It's like your taste buds change.
That's
And
so. Actually, quickly on that note, so taste buds do change. It
yes,
takes about 28 to 32 days before we
well,
see a turnover in the taste bud
yeah,
cells.
whatever it is, I don't remember exactly how long it took for me, but yeah, I guess a few weeks. So that's about right. But again, it was really, I just felt better. I looked better by losing the weight, and I have never gained it back. I fluctuate by a few pounds, but I've never gained the weight back. I don't miss the ice cream and all the meats and the chicken and the seafood and milk products and dairy products. Just don't miss it. I don't. I have no taste for it anymore at all.
Right. And could it be that you have a negative association
Well,
with
now I
those
do.
products? Yeah, now, yeah. But with those products and how you were before you lost the weight and felt
Well,
better and all of that.
before, I had, by example, most kids, they learn what to eat, or by what their mother prepares when you're a kid. And my mother learned from her mother or my grandmother, and my grandmother, even though when even though she lived till she was 103 and was obese,
Oof.
if you live till you're 103, I mean, that's pretty good. So to me, even though my grandmother was a horrible cook, but she, but,
That's how she survived.
but she did something right. I don't know. I
Her
mean,
cooking was so bad she didn't overeat.
well, I don't know what she did, but yeah, whatever. And so my mother and all my aunts, they learned to cook from their mother, my grandmother, and I just assumed it was healthy, healthy dairy and healthy meats, and of course it wasn't healthy, but I didn't know any different. And when I was growing up, I mean, people were not health conscious. People didn't know what eating healthy was, or if they did, I don't know what the definition was. So there was really no point of reference. And when I was in medical school, although I had an interest in nutrition or diet, I guess, no one ever taught it to me. It was not in a
It was
course.
not, yeah, it was
Yeah,
not in the curriculum. It still isn't
no,
really, but that's a whole other
I didn't know.
conversation.
I
Yeah.
honestly didn't know. I was ignorant as anybody else out there.
But it's interesting, Jeff, that you mentioned this because Colin Campbell and Caldwell Esselstyn, both very well known doctors in the plant based
Yes,
movement,
yes,
also talk about this. They also talk about the fact they grew up in what they thought was a healthy environment, farm based and, eating the products from the land. And it's only later in their career that they figured out, whoa, wait a second, this is poison in our body. And they switched, and then they, through their own research, they were able to prove all of this.
yes.
But it's you were like them, right? It's the same situation. You just didn't know. And I think most of us are the same way. We just don't know that we think we're eating healthy. Are we?
We're
You
not.
know?
We're not. And it's interesting because I'm a curious person. If somebody says no to me, I want to know why. I mean, okay, no, I understand what you said, but you got to explain it to me. What's the basis of what you're saying? Or if the answer is yes, fine. Explain to me why you believe the answer is yes. And what I found over the years that when people told me they thought they ate healthy, really what that meant was a very gray area. They never really explained it. Well, it was healthy because it tasted good. What does that mean? It tastes good. Well, I mean, some people who are homeless, eat out of the dumpster, and maybe to them it tastes good, but I don't think it would taste good to me. But okay, somebody tells me it tastes good. Okay, great. Really, what they're saying is that they eat the healthiest meat that they could find, or they eat the healthiest, cheesecake because it tastes so good. And the fact that it has 2,000 calories in one bite, or it's clogging up their artery. And I remember when I was in medical school, I saw a autopsy on a 4.5 year old little kid. And at the time it meant nothing to me. Well, it meant something, but I remember that the aorta, the main going from the heart to the legs and the body and everything, which is quite large. Uh, After the autopsy was halfway through, the pathologist basically cut the aorta in half so you could see the inside of it. And it was filled with this gunky, cloggy, gooey, sticky substance, which I now know is cholesterol. Wasn't
Right.
explained to me at the time that's what it was. And we all have that in our bodies.
At 4.5 years
Four
old?
and a half years old, 4.5. Well,
Ooh.
and I've since learned that this process starts when you're a baby, when you're an infant. When a child is weaned from their mother's milk, that's when they're fed typically cow's milk or dairy products, or they're introduced to food, and most of that food is artery clogging and cholesterol laden. And this 4.5-year-old who died for other reasons, of course, but his arteries were, yeah, he was getting arterial sclerosis. I mean, that's what that's what is the beginning stages of high blood pressure and high cholesterol readings and uh, heart attacks. And so anyhow, years went on, and I started feeling better when I changed my diet. And
Mhm.
one of the conversation, one of the things that I thought to myself about is, now that I'm made this dramatic shift in my lifestyle, um, and I had one of my doctors was a lifestyle medicine doctor who I communicated with every few months, like we are now, basically on Zoom. She lives quite a distance away from me. We discussed my exercise, or at that time lack of
Lack
exercise,
of.
and I realized at the time that why don't I exercise? And even though you tell me I'm retired, I'm not retired. I mean, I still work.
You're super active. We both know that.
Well,
Like
you
you're
and I know that, but the audience doesn't. And I stopped practicing medicine over 30 years ago, as you know, Ellen, and I became a full-time real estate investor. So I'm kind of like, you know, partially now married to my real estate business, and a lot of it has been sold off, but I did very well with that. And one thing that I learned about myself over the years, because as you get older, you learn things about yourself, is that you can't make important decisions unless you can answer questions for yourself, unless you have a matter of confidence in what you're doing, unless you believe in yourself. For me, that entails a tremendous amount of research, asking questions, reading, and getting a lot of these answers from other people who really are authorities. A lot of people say they're authorities, and what they have to say is BS. So anyhow, my doctor and I, my telehealth doctor, my lifestyle medicine doctor, who completely agrees with me, is a yoga certified instructor. Also, aside from being a physician, she basically and I agreed, I should start exercising. And I was completely open to the idea, and I found I never really liked the idea of going to a gym.
okay.
Uh, I mean, I'm 74 years old, and my body, is not what it was when it was 25. And but I never, but even more importantly, I know for a 74-year-old I look good, but the reality is that I never really had the need to, oh, look at my body type of a thing. I mean, there are men, women who, whatever age they are, oh, look at my body, even though they're not saying it. I mean, clearly they're showing themselves, which is fine if they want to do that. I mean, I don't care. I've
It
never
depends.
been that way. So
Yeah, but
I was always
I
comfortable. If I need weights or dumbbells, I'll buy them, which is exactly what I did. If I need
yeah.
resistance bands, you go on Amazon, you buy them, and you're good to go.
I
So,
on that note though, for the gym, I think it's an important point that you raised. A lot of people are intimidated to go to gyms because they might have a gold gym right next to their place where it's mostly body builders, weightlifters, power lifters, and they feel intimidated about
yeah,
going there. But there are different kinds of
gyms.
gyms out there. I've got one over here. It's part of a community center. So the average age in there is anywhere between 65 and 80. So this is the kind of environment that I'm in. And then if you go there at 3:30, 4 o'clock, then we get the high school kids. So
Right.
all of a sudden it changes. But then in the evening, it's the working crowd. So it depends on the gym. It depends on
Time
the
of day.
times. And there are definitely some gyms that are more, oh, look at me kind of places,
Yeah.
but many of the gyms are just for the regular people and not that intimidating. I just want to point that out because we have
Well,
clients who work from home and clients who work out from
yes.
sorry,
And
work out from home, work out from a gym, and it's whatever people prefer, that's fine. Like we will adapt. And for you to work out from your home, it's been going extremely well because you're disciplined, because you just follow. I give you a workout and you follow it to a T.
I
Good
try
for
to.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I try to. And everything you're saying is true. I mean, there are some people who love going to gyms, and obviously you have the equipment in the gym that, that's very difficult to really replicate in a home gym. But that's okay. Anyhow, so I found a personal trainer who, prior to going with Fit Vegan, was also online. She lived in Arizona, actually, but and I by default chose her because I just felt comfortable. I like what she said, and she worked with older adults, which I guess I am, and it was an introduction. It just seemed to make sense. Uh,
So how did you make your decision to choose her in terms of
by
overall
default,
criteria?
there was
Yeah.
nobody else.
You
There was nobody else.
oh.
I didn't know about vegan coaching at the time, and there weren't a lot of options out there. So real, but I felt comfortable. I felt very
Right.
comfortable with
So
her.
feeling comfortable with the coach or trainer is one. Accessibility, because you wanted someone
Right.
online, right?
Correct. Correct.
You were saying you liked what you were hearing from her. So there's that
Communication. Yeah.
the communication and maybe the expertise that she was
Provide.
um
Yeah.
yeah, portraying. Was there anything else that was when you were thinking about your criteria to find a trainer that you were
No, that
thinking
was it.
about?
That was pretty much it for me at the time. But I also had the attitude that, let me try it for a fit period of time. And if it works out, great. And if it doesn't work out, yes, I will have to change, but I won't have to make that decision for whatever it was, 3, 4, 5 months, down the road. So, but I was happy. I was happy, and I was working out with her. Things changed, like after like 5, 6 months, I had surgery. So for 2 or 3 months, whatever it was, I couldn't do anything. I mean, I was just physically unable to do anything, and that's fine. And then I resumed working with her, and she certainly understood that that wasn't a problem. But the big reason why I guess I separated with her, and I worked for her for close to a year, excuse me, maybe a year and a half, was she basically had a different philosophy about diet and nutrition than I did.
Mm.
She did.
Mm.
She knew I was whole food, plant based, no oil, salt, sugar, and she was okay with that. But she pretty much mandated that she didn't like the fact that I personally have come to believe that protein restriction, caloric restriction is actually a good thing because it prolongs life. And I didn't make this up. I read Michael Greger's book, How Not to Age, and it's been documented. Um, and I know that there is some controversy about that because there are a lot of people, even in the vegan community, who protein is a very important part of that. But
On
anyhow,
so quickly on that note, yes, Michael Greger does talk about protein intake, but there's also the fact that as we age, we have higher requirements for protein because our body doesn't metabolize it as easily. And
true,
that was Walter Longo's research on longevity. So basically, past age 60, 65,
right,
we just have to up our protein content and level. So there is just to say that with the Fit Vegan program, it's usually two parts. There's the exercise part and there's the nutrition part. And then the exercise part, like we work by phases. Every 4 weeks, we change the program. But with the nutrition part, what we focus on is a slight caloric deficit, which is where we totally agree on. And with the Fit Vegan, we also say, okay, we are going to make sure that you get a certain amount of protein, which is uh, on the higher scale because our population tends to be, and I don't want to say older, but let's just say older than 40 and 50 years old. And so at this point, we need to up our protein levels. And especially for women who are menopausal and postmenopausal, it gets even worse in terms of metabolizing the protein. So we do have to increase the protein levels. So that's why we have that in our program. But not everyone necessarily has the same views or beliefs. And we base ourselves on the recent research. Who knows what's going to come up in the future, but this is why we've adopted this. I know that for yourself, you were saying you didn't want to work with that trainer anymore because she was pushing the protein too much on you. And we had agreed right from the beginning, let's not talk about the protein. We'll just focus on the exercise program, making sure that you also eat
Well,
whole foods, plant-based SOS, and that if ever we reach a point where there's a plateau, some things aren't moving, then we'll revisit that. But
yeah,
basically, it's this is about having some flexibility in our communication, and how can I adapt the whole program to make sure that you're happy with it, you stay motivated, and I'm doing my job basically as a trainer.
yes, yes. What you're saying is absolutely true, and I agree with you, Ellen. But getting back to what I was saying before, my previous trainer was heavy into excess protein, and it didn't matter to her that I didn't necessarily concur with what she was saying. And basically, one day, it was obvious she was very frustrated with me. And she basically just told me she can't work with me anymore. You know, that philosophically, even though I said to her, let's not talk about anything but exercise, the nutrition, we both know that we disagree on many levels and we won't talk about it because I was
Mm-hmm.
using her only for exercise. Anyhow, she one day she couldn't abide by that any longer, told me she couldn't work with me anymore and said, you know, whatever, at the end of the month, we're done, which is fine. I mean, there are other issues too. I mean, she was very anal and very rigid. I could be anal too, but let's not talk about that. But
But sometimes but this is an interesting one because sometimes we're with the trainer for a while, we enjoy them, and then it's like, well, maybe I want to change after a while, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or
right,
it's not necessarily, we usually know when the connection isn't there between
yeah,
trainer and client, and we always want to make sure that the client is happiest. So even me, I've got a number of coaches, and I've had coaches in my life for various activities and sports. And if I don't click with one, it's like, well, I don't click with you. I like what you do, but I'm going to have to find another coach, and that's it. Right. It's no harm done. And I don't disrespect what you're doing, but I need to find someone else that I can
right.
click with, who can understand me, give me my space to be me while I'm following the program.
I
Right.
agree.
And that's exactly what you were at the point where you needed to find someone or a
Needed to
program
move
that would
on.
give you that.
In retrospect, I needed to move on, and I'm glad I did. And so I did a little bit of research again, and there were a lot of options. Yes, there are local gyms I could have decided to go to if I wanted to. I really didn't want to. I like the online concept. And gosh, I
So
think it was
what
Dr.
is it?
Lori Marbus. Dr.
So,
Lori.
oh yeah. Just before we get into Dr. Marbus, what is it about the online program that you enjoyed?
Well, you know, again, I'm very comfortable. I'm very self motivating. I mean, I I want to get better. You know, I can't change the fact that for too many decades I was a couch potato and just accepted the status of my lack of physical exercise. But everything I've learned in the past couple of years shows me that exercise is good. It's good, you know, from a health standpoint, from a longevity standpoint, psychologically, mentally, emotionally. it's very uplifting. It makes me feel good, very satisfying. I like exercising first thing in the morning, so it kind of like gets my day
It's
started on the right
it
track.
sets the
Um,
tone for the day. Yeah,
yeah, it really
yeah.
does. And it's fun, I mean, it can be very challenging. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there are days that, some of the exercise routines are not as fun as perhaps I would prefer them to be.
Are you referring to balance exercises in particular?
No, you're bringing up something that I wasn't going to bring up, but you said that, Ellen, because for those of you who obviously don't know, which is everybody, I had an issue a couple of months ago with I had norovirus for a few weeks, and it really set me back for a bit, and I got better after a few weeks, obviously, but. One thing that never really returned 100% is my balance, or really lack of balance. Maybe it's back 98% or something like that. And also part of it is too, for example, that one thing I haven't mentioned is, aside from my coaching with you, Ellen, and the previous person, is I've been doing yoga now for about 3 years. On my own, I just decide, hey, this is good. Why shouldn't I do it? There's a
And
yoga
and
studio.
and you do it quite a lot too,
I
right?
do
Don't
it
you do it like two, three times a
four,
week?
yeah, 3, 4 sessions. So I do it maybe, 4 hours, 4.5 hours a week. And I go to my local studio. I mean, I could do it online, but it's not the same as going to a studio. At least I don't think so. And people are all ages. It's interesting with yoga. Yoga to me is, it does a lot of things. It's great for flexibility and stability and balance, part of it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I've never been great at balance. I guess in retrospect, that's just one of my weak points. But I mean, okay, I'm okay, but I wish I was a lot better. And even in certain poses, I wish I was more flexible. But certain poses, and I told you this, Ellen, I mean, I'm 74, and my instructor, at least one of my instructors, I know she's half my age. She's 30, whatever, something years old. And I mean, I can get into positions that she can't get into. I mean, I can get down on the floor, and like, my instructor looks at me like, you know,
Good for you, right?
yeah, well, and I can do it. It's comfortable. I mean, for me, it's comfortable. Now I know why. As a doctor, I mean, I have my bones were just born that way. To make a long story short, but
Right, right, right.
so I just, and it makes me feel young at heart, and physically younger. I feel more flexible. I can do things that my friends, who are about the same age as me, can't do. I know they can't do it. Um, my diet allows me to just feel great. I see people my age dying, and having heart disease and high blood pressure and high cholesterol, and taking 5 or 6 or 7 I don't take medicines. I don't take any
Hmm.
prescription medications. I have no
I
need.
think I think the latest stats were that people 75 and over take on average 12 medications per day.
It's a lot. That's a lot. That's ridiculous, but yeah, it's a lot. And I take nothing.
Too much.
Yeah,
Too
well,
much.
it is too much. And I've never had diabetes, and my blood pressure is normal. My cholesterol last time it was taken, my LDL was 69, and my total cholesterol was like 139, 140. I mean, it's excellent. It's not even normal. It's low. And I want to even get it lower, but that's another conversation. But and that's all diet related, and all the
Hmm.
exercise I do. So, am I perfect? Far from it. But I have a good, healthy, strong attitude. I don't like making excuses. I'm very self motivated. I know what's right. I know what's wrong. And although sometimes it's easy not to do the right things, I know that I'm not going to succeed in achieving my healthy goals if I don't do things on a regular basis. Ellen, you know that through Fit Vegan coaching, there are 4 exercise routines on a weekly basis that I receive from you. And I think when we first started, the first couple of days, first week, whatever, I told you that I wanted to do 2 additional days of workouts. That was my core workouts as a carryover from my previous training, in addition to doing my
Mhm.
yoga on a continued basis. And I have been doing that. So 6 days a week, I'm working out. You have an opportunity to see my heart rate in action, and you even
And
commented.
yeah,
You commented
just a
how
quick comment, because almost every time you work out, you send me the screen capture
yeah,
of your heart rate, which is actually really good for me to see, because we've talked about how you've had some heart issues in the past, and I'm always looking at, you're doing exercise, the heart rate goes up, and I'm looking at how quickly does it go back down. So how can is the heart healthy enough that it can recover fully before starting again, and then rest, starting, rest, starting, rest. We know there's an issue when the heart rate doesn't go back down. But so far we've been doing okay. And do you think that you sending me this heart rate screen capture, do you think that keeps you motivated as well, in terms of making sure you get the exercise done,
I,
knowing that I'm waiting to see it?
I, you know, in all honesty, I feel very proud of myself. What I've accomplished.
And you
Uh,
should. And you
and
should.
I should. That's right. I should. And I, why shouldn't I share it with you? I mean, I always appreciate your comments, your feedback. If there's something you see or don't like what you see, you can communicate that with me. I mean, I'm pretty good at looking at the screen capture also, but that's okay. I'm you and I are a team. We work together. I enjoy working with you. You support me. You nurture me. You keep me on my toes, and you challenge me always. And every couple of weeks, you change the routine, and that's great. I appreciate that. I mean, my body appreciates it. Mentally, I appreciate it. Psychologically, I appreciate it. So I think you and I really, are a good team. That's the
And
way it should be.
I think that's the key word here. It's a team. It's team effort.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here to help support you in your journey and for you to achieve your goals. And your goals to begin with were about longevity. They were about quality of life. That's how we started our journey together. Now, not everyone has, well, I think everyone has those goals, but often there are other goals that go with it. I know some people might want to lose some weight, some people might to want to do some body recomposition, but yours were very specific to, no, longevity, quality of life, and we'll do that. And we've been working as a team. This is where I think most people have to realize the coach is there as a teammate. I'm not there to do the work for the other person. I'm here to support the other person, making sure that I can help to lift you to the next level, because there is no way any one of my client is going to get fatter while they're getting older. Fatter in the sense that they're putting weight on that is unwanted. If they want to put some weight on that they want, that's a goal, no problem. We can do that different ways in a healthy way. But if they are getting older, bigger, and we were talking about that earlier, they are getting less mobile. They are breaking bones because they're falling. They're losing mobility. They're losing their balance. Um, these are all the preconceived notions that we have about aging. They're getting frail. We don't want that. None of my clients, I don't want to see this. So I'm here to work with the clients. Me and other coaches, we all have this vision for our clients, right? Especially when they come to us and they say, I want good quality of life. I want to live a long life. And if I'm going to live until I'm, I don't know, 100, 120 years old, I want to make sure that I'm independent, that I'm still living at home, that I can still use the toilet, sit down and get up on my own, or sit down on a chair and get up on my own, because that's a squat. If we have stairs in our home to go up the stairs, that's like a lunge, right? Carry some bags. That's like a farmer walk or a suitcase carry. Like, there's direct implications between what we do in terms of resistance training and longevity and quality of life. Now, as we've been progressing as a team through the different months, You've had some challenges. You've had some health challenges that you had to go through. You mentioned norovirus before. You also had oral surgery. Then you had life happen, right? You had some family visiting and all of this. And through it all, I think you had to completely stop for about 2.5 weeks when you had the norovirus and the
Yeah,
surgery.
something like that.
And yeah, and then you came back stronger. Then you had the visitors in that were coming in, and then you had all sorts of things going on. And then when they left, you came back stronger still.
Well, it's an
So
attitude. It's an attitude. Again,
yeah,
I'm very self motivated, and that's just me. I mean, it has nothing to do with your coaching. I mean, I've always been that way. I mean, I just do things. I don't need other people to pat me on the back and say, "Nice job, Jeff." I know if I'm doing a good job, and I know if I'm doing a bad job, and I don't need somebody else to point that out to me. I just know. And again, my goal is to get better. Simple as that. I know that, and I'm not going to get better by sitting in my rear end doing nothing. So, yes, if I have a norovirus, I mean, I couldn't do anything. I mean, but when I was well enough to maybe not be 100%, but whatever I could do, I did it. And
hmm
I knew that the sooner I get back, because I don't like doing nothing, because then I really, if you sit down for 2 or 3 weeks and you do absolutely nothing, you can have a setback of a month or two or whatever the case may be. And I didn't want that. And that's happened to me in the past where I've gone on vacation. So I understand this. I don't need you to tell me that. I mean, you can, but I understood that from the get go.
and
And
as your teammate, I kind of did when I forwarded you that study about deconditioned individuals,
yeah,
showing the graph that the longer
yeah,
you wait, the more the curve goes down. Basically, the quicker we lose, the longer we wait or we stop doing exercise. Initially, the first week isn't too bad, and then we start to lose our fitness, and then it's like, oh, we lose a lot of it, and then it becomes that much harder to go back up to our fitness
right.
level. So I remember sending you that graph, just saying, just keep moving, just do whatever you can. And you did great. You went through those challenges. They were hard, and you had some problems breathing too.
Yeah, yes,
Yeah, it
well,
was hard, but you didn't let that bring you down in terms of your mindset or in
well,
terms
my
of
mindset was, in all honesty, that if I, and I've had COVID also, if I get COVID, if I get norovirus, I mean, I'm not going to live forever. And I know that, obviously, we all know that. But the reality is that because of my lifestyle, not just the exercise, but my diet primarily, you know, if I get COVID, it's going to be for less time that I'm going to be out of commission than for somebody who is not living my lifestyle. If I get norovirus and I'm out for 2 or 3 weeks, somebody else could be out 4 or 5 or 6 weeks. So I know my attitude is that even though I felt absolutely horrible when I was going through this process, I also knew in the back of my mind that it's going to be temporary, and it's going to be much more temporary for someone like me than, quote, the masses. And I'm very comfortable, Ellen. If getting back to what I was saying before, if 95 and 96% of developed nations eat horribly, the standard American diet as it's called, and so that leaves what, 4 or 5% that eat okay.
Mhm.
Already I'm not normal. But I knew I wasn't normal when I was a kid. I mean, in all honesty, I don't think like most people. It's just me. It's who I am. People who talk about me, who know me, like my family, and I mean, my family still tells me that I love my dog, who died 10 years ago, that I love my dog more than I love them. And they're
Mm.
right. Yeah, maybe I did. I don't know. I mean, my dog and I were a team. Like we looked at each other, we communicated, we understood what we were saying. I'd lay on her stomach, she'd lay on my lap. we'd sleep together. And it's like, it was time to go to bed. She knew what time it was. Let's go. Tail would be wagging, and so my family always said you love the dog more than us. I never argue with them. I mean, maybe I did. I don't know, but
Well,
I'm just
it's easy to have a special bond with animals.
on the
They,
bond. I
yeah.
love the dog, but the point is, I as I said to you before, I'm different than most people, so I could succeed in ways in which, I mean, who the hell is a doctor and retires when you're 44 years old to become a full-time real estate? I mean, I've never met anybody else who's done that before in my life. And, I mean, obviously I had my reasons, but that was the right decision for me. I knew it was a very
Mhm.
difficult decision to make, but again, once that decision was made, I did it.
Is it fair to say, Jeff, that you have a strong sense of identity?
Yes. Yeah.
And because of that, I think you have clarity in terms of once you've set your mind to do something, it's very clear the path that you have to take. Is that fair to say?
I think that's true in many regards. Maybe not everything, but in many regards, I think what you just said is very accurate. Um, we all learn by our life experiences, and I, like everybody, has made mistakes, and that's part of getting older. And all we can really do is to minimize those mistakes, think things through ahead of time. And if you do make a mistake, learn from it and don't repeat it and make the same mistake over and over again. But, I mean, that's that's who I've come to be. I'm very comfortable in
Yeah,
my own skin.
absolutely. And I think with a strong sense of identity and accumulation of success, there's an expression that says success leaves breadcrumbs, meaning you've been successful before. You've had that breadcrumb before. You know that you're going to have more breadcrumbs coming in. Like you know that you can create your own success. So you were successful as a doctor, as a real estate investor. Then you find out in your early 60s that, yeah, your health is not very good. You make these changes. All of a sudden, you're feeling a lot better. You've got more energy. And then you're like, well, yeah, maybe I should start exercising. You start with yoga, then you find an online trainer. Eventually, you move to us, and then we start to work together as a team, and your sense of identity is still the same, and we work around your space. I'm not trying to make you into anybody else than Jeff. Sometimes it's so funny because sometimes we have contests with the Fit Vegan family. Every few months we'll have it's like a group contest that lasts a month, and you always tell me I don't need the contest to stay motivated. And it's interesting because that means that you have not only a strong sense of identity, but you're very strongly um, internally motivated. You don't need the external motivators in order to keep your progress going. Minimal, really. I'm
Yeah.
here to support you, but this is your journey. A lot of people out there need a combination of internal and external
Yeah.
motivators in order to get them going in the right directions.
True.
Some people need fully external motivators. That's hard, but basically, to go on inner fuel alone, it's extremely hard. And perhaps your key to success is that strong sense of identity that you have. You just you could basically look at food and say, that's not me. I'm not going to eat this because this is not what I do. Correct?
Yeah.
Like the Ben and Jerry's.
Usually that's true. And I also look at me. Well, I look at who I was raised by. I was raised by a very, well, my parents, obviously, but my grandmother, who I alluded to earlier, was a very strong mentor and motivating factor in my life. She was also an extremely bright lady. Even though she was illiterate, she was perhaps the brightest woman I've ever met in the world. And she told me at a very young age that I could do anything. Effectively, she said I could do anything I want in the world. and to believe in myself and to be self-employed. Had no idea what she was talking about when
Oh,
I was a
that
kid.
that's interesting. So this,
Well, my grandparents, my grandmother was self-employed, always, well, virtually always, and they worked their way through the Great Depression and built
mm,
up a business from nothing to extremely successful through the Great Depression. Everybody was going bankrupt, and my grandmother wanted to buy land in Florida, and now it would be called downtown Miami. But she could have bought it for pennies on the dollar back 70, 80
back
years
then.
ago.
Yeah, yeah.
But my grandfather overruled her because back then that's what men did. Whatever the man said, the woman just kind of like okay. But my
And
grandmother,
it was also hard for women to have a bank account. That's the other thing too.
it
But
was
that's a whole other sociology
in in
discussion.
in, in the U.S. It was illegal until I think 1919 for women to open a bank account. And even after that, it was very uncommon. But you're right. I don't know about Canada or other countries, but yeah, I mean, obviously, things have changed
Hmm.
over the
Hmm.
years. But anyhow, my grandmother was just a very strong force always in my life, and obviously, I knew her a long time because she was so old. Um, but she wasn't healthy. I mean, she was healthy, but you know,
So that's interesting. So and we see that all around us, right? Sometimes I had a neighbor in Ontario, and she was by then late 70s smoking I don't know how many cigarettes per day, probably poor diet too. And I really say probably because I have seen some of the things that she was bringing into her home. And you start to wonder how come these people are still living, and then you have some healthy people who do everything right. They eat their greens and they make sure they exercise, and then they die young from whatever it is. I mean, sometimes it's just bad luck,
yeah,
right? But
yeah.
for the vast majority of us, the proper lifestyle, the proper nutrition. So, lifestyle meaning how active are we? Do we do resistance training? Do we take care of our bones? Do we take care of our muscles? Do we take care of our mind? Do we socialize? Do we eat with family and friends? Right, that will influence how long we live. And do we have a sense of purpose? That's a huge factor in how long we live as well. So when we have all of these things in place and we have a healthy lifestyle, then we know that we're putting all of the chances on our side. So we still have those outliers, right? Those people who smoke, who drink, and who just are
Well,
plain unhealthy, like your grandmother. But your grandmother, I will bet, had a strong sense of identity. So she knew
yes,
exactly who she was. And
yes.
she had probably a really strong sense of purpose
Yes,
because she,
she also knew when she walked into a room of 20 or 30 people that she was the smartest person of all of them. She knew it. She
yeah.
knew it. It was eminent in her. When she walked in a room, the room became quiet. You could hear a pin drop in deference to her because she commanded that respect. She said things to people that would blow your mind. Well, I mean, I remember stories about my grandmother. Didn't really appreciate them when I was younger, but she could say things and she couldn't care less what people thought of her. I mean, she would walk up to somebody that she never met before and say to them, "How much money do you make?" She wanted an
but
answer.
but
She wanted an answer.
oh my goodness. But this is interesting because then you had her as a role model, which sorry, I'm thinking in French here, as ça te façonne. It models your life. Like she was such uh, a model for you that you're shaped by the values and the beliefs that she brought, and to tell you that you can be anything that you want, and you have to believe it, and then you go on and you do your mark on in the world, and all of this makes it so that you take your journey with the Fit Vegan and with me, and you're like, we're a team, and I'm doing everything to a T. Everything that you tell me to do, Hélène, I'm doing it, and
I
you
do it.
are. I know you are.
I do it. I do it because it's the
And
right thing to do.
and what I love seeing in our conversation, I was looking through our thread here. So we in our the Fit Vegan app, we have a section where we can interact with clients. So we were interacting together. And I don't know how many times I'm feeling strong, I'm motivated, I'm happy with what's happening. I love seeing those comments from you because then I know that we're on the right path, right? And everything that has been in your life so far has prepared you for this journey. And you're not making any excuses. Like, you are doing it. Even when you were sick, we had figured out what you could do, right? You could, so that you could still move a little bit, especially when you had your jaw surgery, right? We were making sure you weren't bending over, right? And you're staying upright, and you had certain exercises, but
Yeah,
still
yeah.
very gentle, and making sure that, your surgeon had approved of all of this, that you work with your medical team. But the whole point was you put everything in place, no excuses, full responsibility. And here you are. You're probably stronger now than you've ever been in your life.
I can honestly say that I probably am from a physical standpoint. I mean, even though my body looks like crap compared to the way I would like it to look, you'll tell me otherwise. But I'm still 74 years old, and I recognize that. But the reality is, when I was younger, I was a couch potato, and I never really did anything, and I never enjoyed what I was doing. I never worked with anybody who coached me like you do, for example. And but my attitude was horrible before, and my attitude now is just the opposite. I want to feel good. It makes me feel good. I know health wise, it's obviously only good. Nothing bad about what I'm doing. And even though what I can do is not always 100% what perhaps the routine that you give me is, because I do have physical limitations still. um I'm not looking for perfection, but I am looking for a good, healthy, positive motivation and attitude that will carry me forward, because I can feel and see the improvement in just everything I'm doing. I don't need other people to tell me I look good. I mean, it's I don't need it. I mean, but we're all different. I don't try to impose my values on other people. Actually, I typically do not any longer tell people that they're eating crappy food or it's unhealthy, or my attitude is, if you want to kill yourself, have a good time, in all
It,
honesty. And
it,
I know that's not the right attitude, but it's still, I can't change the world. You got to
we
accept things.
we can bring a horse to water, but we can't force the horse to drink. And on that note, we had talked as well about what was going on with your family, because you had this, well, the support of your wife. You were cooking, right? So when you decided from one, you go to bed one night and you're telling your wife, I'm really thinking about this. And the next morning you say, okay, I'm whole foods plant-based SOS. Your wife, what was your wife's reaction in all of
Well,
this?
first of all, I should prelude this by saying that I I always did like 95% of the cooking in the house. My wife did the baking, but virtually all the cooking I always did. So I said to my wife, I'm not telling you to eat what I eat. I said, you can eat whatever you want or continue to eat what you're eating, but I'm not making two meals. So, you want to cook by yourself, have a good time. I'll just cook for myself. But if you want to eat what I'm making, I'll I'll make a few too. We'll have, a double portion or whatever. And I remember about 2 weeks after we, started this journey, my wife said to me, Jeff, I can't eat this shit anymore.
By that, she meant your
I,
new way of cooking.
I need meat.
Ah,
And, and
interesting.
and that was my reaction at the time. I just laughed. I said, "Well, you do what you want to do. I don't care." I mean, she is 90% what I eat now, but she occasionally will have seafood or fish or some nasty stuff that she shouldn't eat, um, which I just avoid. And all my friends now, accept that I am what I am, whether they agree or disagree is they don't agree, but I don't care. That's their decision. I do have one friend who's just like me, whole food, plant based, no SOS. And it's interesting. Her reaction initially was, "How do you cook without oil? It happens. It can happen." Um, but
So,
I'm still saddened because I think of everybody that in my family who has died, you know, and I know they died premature. Even my grandmother at 103 could have lived another couple of years if she ate a good diet. Uh,
hmm.
it's really a shame. Everybody died too young, but you got to let people live the life that they do, and yeah, so be it. I mean,
Yeah, and sometimes I was asking about your wife because it means a lot to have the support of a spouse, right? And especially when, if we're the ones cooking, we have a bit better control over what changes we can make in the kitchen.
right,
When we're the one eating and not preparing the food, that's a whole other dynamic. I remember going vegetarian as a teenager, and my sister was vegetarian with me, and we're going back into the 80s. And my mom was just like, okay, I'm going to try. And so my mom was cooking, we were eating, but clearly we were not going to be eating the meat anymore. So she eventually, she found some bean recipes and all of that, and it was fine. So we were lucky to have a good mother who was good in the kitchen and could find some
right,
substitutes. But not everyone has those resources in terms of finding the recipes or having that person who cooks for them change the way they cook, because for some
right,
people it's a big deal,
yeah,
right? And it can make going whole foods plant based so much more complicated than it should be, because it's
yeah,
fairly easy. I mean, half the population in the world eats rice and beans. This is
right,
not rocket science. It's just, how do we put everything together with some greens and make sure that it's to our taste and our taste buds are happy with all of that. But basically, your wife was not really doing the cooking. You were doing the cooking. You were in control of that change. So that made things easier. And I believe you have two kids, right?
yeah, yeah. One's relatively local, one's overseas, but yes, yes.
And what did they say about your change?
Well, my daughter thinks I'm crazy, but she accepts it. She's opposed to what I'm doing. And my son, he doesn't think I'm crazy. His lifestyle is very stressful, and he doesn't, he supports what I'm doing, but he can't do it personally.
Mm. They can't do it yet for whatever
Well,
reason, but
it
it
has
just
a
means
complicating factor. He has a wife who doesn't cook, and he doesn't cook, and it's kind of hard to make your own food when neither one of you cook.
right.
Um, so they get a lot of takeout foods and whatnot. But although breakfast he can have oatmeal, it's again, it's sad, but you got to respect people. They're adults and they've got to make their own decisions, just like people on this podcast will have to
E-
decide for themselves what makes sense for them to do. And
exactly.
again, as you have mentioned many times, I mean, I know what's right. I have a very strong sense of what's right and wrong, not only for me, but for other people. Now, I'm not going to impose my values on somebody else because it's not my business to do that. Again, like I said before, people want to kill themselves. That's their prerogative. But just recognize, don't tell me it's healthy. I mean, you can
Hmm.
tell me it's healthy, but I know it's not healthy. And, when like, I see somebody who, weighs 250 pounds and they tell me they're healthy, I'm sorry, but I mean, it doesn't. You don't look healthy. I mean, we used to have a governor in America of New Jersey, Chris Christie, and he's morbidly obese. I think he weighs around 450 or 500 pounds. When I was a
Mm.
doctor, I used to have a local priest who was Polish, and he used to have a cook that he imported from Poland, and he just loved eating Polish whatever she made. And he died when he was 45 of a heart attack, and he weighed like 450 to 500 pounds, and the six pallbearers could barely carry his casket down the steps because, you know,
It was almost 100 pounds each.
yeah, I mean that's a lot of weight, and whatever, I mean, you're only
Yeah.
fooling yourself, and if people want to fool themselves, have a good time. I mean,
And it's interesting because you were there, right? Let's say even
I never realized I was
10.
unhealthy. I mean,
Yeah.
I was borderline BMI of around 30, like 29 and a half, 30. I was close to 200 pounds, and I'm now down to, close to 149, 150. So,
And
yeah.
how tall are you, Jeff? You're
Well, I've
5'7",
shrunk.
5'9"?
I've shrunk. Now I'm 5'9". He used to be 5'11". Used to be taller, but yeah,
So you're 5'9",
about,
and you were just under 200 pounds.
yeah, about,
Yeah. And now you are at
well, 5'9" and 149 or whatever. Yeah,
ish, which is a fair weight, and you've been getting stronger.
yeah,
So that tells me that your body there's been some recomposition happening, right?
yeah.
So body fat percentage, muscle mass has
Yeah.
been changing so that you've got more muscle and than
No,
body fat.
I can lift things now. I can do things that I don't think I could have done years ago. And I'm well aware of osteopenia and sarcopenia. And even though it's normal to a certain extent as we age, that doesn't mean that it can't be slowed down or, yeah,
Better managed.
or managed. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And but like the other day, I went to the hardware store and picked up like 50, 60 pounds of stone that I needed for my garden. I just picked it up. I mean, it was heavy, but I could do it. And
Hmm.
I don't think people, much. I mean, I go to the store, to load, 10 or 15 sacks or whatever it is in my pickup truck. And these younger people, sometimes come and let me help you. They see my gray hair. Well, I can't hide my gray hair. I guess I look like I'm a senior citizen, but I can do things. I can do things.
Uh,
It's okay.
yeah. Yeah. So I just want to ask you a few more questions
Okay.
before I let you go, because we're this is such a
Anything
this is
else?
such a great chat. I'm just loving this.
No,
Um,
anything you want. Go ahead.
yeah. So coming back, because you're talking about putting things in your pickup truck, and you're strong enough to do it. And I think as well you've made some quite a few muscle gains since being with me in January, just from how you've been pushing yourself. Now, and I say that in a good way, because that's what we want. We want to be increasing the resistance training, the load. The exercises will vary, but then we get stronger and stronger. Uh, was there anything surprising or unexpected about the workouts or the process on your end?
Well,
Like, was the fact that you gained strength, was that a surprise to you
no,
or
no. I mean, first of
expected?
all, since we're a team, I've got to trust you, and I do trust you, and I know that anything you give me is going to be in my best interest. So, that's, even though it's surprising in the sense that perhaps I've never done that routine or exercise previously. That's okay. Obviously, the first time I do it is new, so takes me a little while to kind of figure out exactly how to do it. But that's, I know, normal. Um, no, I want to get healthier. I want to get stronger, and I want to build muscle as much as I can. So, Yeah, I mean, no, I'm with you 100%.
And so
I
nothing really surprised you through the
no,
process or through
no.
the
I mean,
exercises, right?
it was explained to me very well that every 4 weeks or so, the exercise routine is going to change. Some will be easier, some will be more difficult, and I know that just from life experience. And you know, I can do it. I take the attitude I can do it. You wouldn't give me something that I couldn't do. If something is for whatever reason physically beyond my capability, I'll share that with you. But
Hmm.
yeah. But again, that's me. My attitude. Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely agree with you. And are there specific milestones that you've reached that you're especially proud of?
Um. Not a specific milestone, but I intuitively know that I joke that my body looks like crap. Well, it does look like crap, but I'll never be a bodybuilder. Well, you always tell me.
Listen, you won't, I'm sorry to tell you, you won't look like Jason Momoa anytime soon. It's just
Well,
a different genetic makeup.
yeah,
But you have a strong body, so
yeah,
I don't want to get it.
and that to me is my motivation.
Yeah,
Is it a goal? I guess it's a goal, but again, because of me being who I am, I don't have the need to. I mean, you say I should, and I should, go to be measured by a digital scale, or do a full body scan, which I
and
could do and should do.
right. And that's just so that we can get the an
A
overall
baseline,
picture of your health, not just the weight, but also body
right?
fat percentage, muscle mass, hydration levels, protein level, bone mass. There's a number of data points that we can get from those. But you know what? Everyone is there. You don't want to go, and that, or you can't go, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. It's fine. We have other
Yeah,
ways
yeah.
of measuring progress. It's
I
also how
know,
you
I
feel,
know.
how you sleep. You've been sleeping better
No,
too.
I've been sleeping better. More usually. I mean, I still have bad nights occasionally, but generally speaking, my sleeping has stabilized and maybe slightly improving. Um, Usually, so yeah, that I used to have problems with sleeping. Uh, it's less of an issue now. Not perfect, but going in the right direction. And I also do yoga nidra sometimes, which
Hmm.
can be helpful. At least I find somewhat helpful. And that's a genetic thing also. I know my dad used to have trouble sleeping too. Um, uh, yeah, it's not any one thing. I mean, having you on my side is huge. You're great. You really are great, Ellen. I mean, my hat's
Thank,
off to you, even though.
thank you, but it's two ways. You know that.
No, I know that, and
You're
I
the one doing all the hard work. I'm just helping you. I'm
well,
guiding you through all of
you're
this.
you're 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 doing very. What you're doing is extremely important, and I want you to know that I appreciate that, and you're fantastic, and that's great. Um, but I know part of it is me. If I learn just through life that if you have a positive attitude and you're motivated and you can usually succeed. Um, and I have found that to be true for me. I mean, I'm not perfect. I do make mistakes, but generally speaking, if I want to get something done, I usually will find a way to get it done. Might not be conventional, might be very unorthodox, might be something that nobody else will do, but I'll do it. I mean, I've come up with things that other people wouldn't have thought of. I tell things like, I'm in real estate investing, and I tell things to my banker that he's never even thought of before or heard before. He said, you're amazing. I can't believe you're doing that. I say, well, that's how my mind works. And it is how my mind, I'm a very unorthodox thinker. Um,
Creative thinker.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know how creative I am, but I guess I am. And like, yeah, I guess, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes what if we do that in one aspect of our life, then it has repercussions in other aspects of our life, right? So I do cold water swimming. We've talked a little bit about this,
Yeah.
and this mindset resilience, it affects every single other aspect of my life. Like for you, that real estate mentoring business and your business that you have, it affects your successes there, affect how you think about everything else in your life.
Yeah.
And do you think, I was thinking about milestones. Do you think that mindset as well would also explain how you've, because I'm really amazed at how you've gained strength. We started in January. We are now in July. You've had at least, I would say, 5 to 6 weeks of some very important challenges, some health, some life, but a lot of health challenges. And you're still strong, much stronger than you are, much stronger today than where you were in January. So that's definitely your mindset then. And the work that you've been putting in. So determination and just showing up day after
I
day.
mean, failure is not an
Not an
option.
option.
I remember changing the subject slightly when I stopped practicing medicine and I became a full-time real estate investor. That was exactly what I said to myself. I did what if scenarios. I did Excel spreadsheets. I was always been very good with numbers and finance. And I said to myself, nobody else. I said, I had a wife and two at the time little kids, in the house. I was paying private school tuition for those two kids, and mortgage and all that stuff on the house. And it's like, Jeff, you can't fail. If I make the step forward and leave medicine and become a full time investor, that's a pretty gutsy thing, very risky,
Takes a lot of courage.
I guess. But I never looked at it that way. I just said I can't fail, and I know what to do to succeed, and I will have to do it, and I did it. And yeah, it was gutsy, but at the time it was more I can't fail. I can't fail. Well, if you don't fail, what do? You succeed. And then
And
when
you
you
learn,
learn from that. And when you have one
yeah.
success, well, then you go on to step number two and you have a second success, and a third success, and a fourth success, and a fifth success, and it keeps on going. And that's what happened, and I've always had successes. And, we all have different goals and objectives. My objectives now that I'm 74 are not the same objectives I had when I was 44. But nonetheless, we go through different stages in life, and I guess I made some good decisions. And part of that decision making process is not just business, but is being healthy, is being fit, is
Mhm.
eating the right things, is doing the right things. And I'm not that I'm a genius, but I always read, a new book comes out by Michael Greger or Joel Furman. I buy the book, I don't go to the library. I want it from my own personal library. So I read it. I've spoken with Caldwell Esselstyn on the phone. Um, I've gone to lectures by Colin Campbell. They're all very, 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 very bright people, and they're all brighter than me. I'm not a genius, but I'm very accepting. I understanding. I probe. I'm curious. I ask questions. I want to know why. I want to know why people die. I want to know why
Mhm.
people live. I want to know why people are healthy, and I want to know why people take 15 medicines when they're 75 years old, and why
Yeah.
I can maybe avoid those 15 medicines, hopefully for a long, long time. I want to know why my grandfather died of a stroke. I know why he died of a stroke. I want to know why, my other grandfather died of a heart attack. I even want to know why my grandmother died when she was 103, and I know the reason for that. Um, now I know the reason. I didn't know the reason at the time. Um, but I remember, and I don't want those things to happen to me. But really, my goal, and I know we have to get off shortly, is that, not to live forever, because nobody lives forever, but however long or how many years I have left to live, I don't want to have any chronic illnesses. I don't want to have any chronic diseases. I mean, the idea of
Or
going to sleep and just dropping dead sounds very appealing to me.
And I think for most of us, we don't want to be a burden to our loved ones. We don't want to end up alone in a long-term care residence,
Right.
waiting for death to happen. There's a number of things that we don't want, but what we do want is a vibrant, fulfilling life where we are independent, living independently, hopefully with a good circle of friends and family around us
Yeah.
as we go on with our life's purpose, right? That's like the ideal situation.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you read a lot.
Yeah.
Please give us your favorite book, one that you would say to someone, if you're thinking about reading one book on this whole journey of whole foods, plant-based,
Oh God.
health journey, which one would it be?
You know, probably the first book I read by Michael Greger would answer that question. How Not to Die, not the
Yeah,
cookbook, but How Not to Die,
that was a
because
good one.
it's simple. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. It was relatively easy to read. It certainly can hit a home for me. I can relate to virtually everything that I read, and it just explained a lot of what I didn't completely understand prior to reading it. As opposed to his one of the last books that he's written, Michael Greger, How Not to Age, where it's like an encyclopedia, very large, very voluminous, very complex and complicated. And even after reading it 2 or 3 times, I still don't understand probably half of it. I mean, that's it's more like an encyclopedia. It
I've
really is.
I've read it about 4 or 5 times. I know exactly what you mean. Every time I'm like, oh,
It's hard.
I think that's what he means. But it's not because it's not well written. It's just because it's very dense.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, it's very well put together, but it's very dense. It's not as much of a storytelling than the first book. But
yeah.
I totally understand what you're saying there with the How
How
Not to
not
Die.
how not to
It's
die.
brilliant.
There were easier books. I mean, Caldwell Esselstyn. He's written
How
some.
to How to Reverse Cardiovascular Disease. Is that the one you're
Yeah,
thinking of?
yeah, with cardiovascular.
The the pictures of his colleague who was 40, 45 years old who has a
Yeah,
heart attack, like within 1 year, they were showing the
different.
angiogram, I
Yeah, it's
believe,
amazing. It's
the
amazing.
yeah, how they can reverse the cardiovascular
Absolutely.
effects. Actually, it's interesting. I had that book. I think I still kept it, but I had lent it to a neighbor of mine who was 79 or 80 years old. He had a heart attack. I didn't know. I just like I didn't see. I used to live in a building, right? So 35 units, so you don't see everybody all the
Right.
time. So I hadn't seen this gentleman for a while, and then I see him. And he tells me, "Oh yeah, I had a heart attack, and they had to put in. I think it was 2 stents in him." And he said, "Now I'm on medication for the rest of my life." And I said to him, "Are you sure about that?" And he said, "Well, that's what the doctor said to me." I'm like, "Okay. Has the doctor told you about other options than medication, like foods?" And he told me no. So I said, "Listen, I'm not a doctor, but I've got a lot of experience with whole foods, plant-based. I'm a coach, I'm a trainer. Maybe you want to explore this option. I have the book upstairs. I'll leave it at your front door. You just read it, and if you don't want to, if you're not interested, that's okay. But if you have questions, let me know." So he reads the book, and then he sends me an email. He says to me, "So how do you go to the restaurant like this?" Like, "Oh, okay. Well, here are some resources, and here are some places that you can go in the area." A couple of weeks later, I get another question. "So how exactly, or how do you cook this and that, and what would be your go-to meals?" Okay, so his wife used to be doing the cooking, so eventually he took over the cooking. I don't see this guy for 9 or 10 months. Probably 10 months, because I saw him about 2 months after his surgery. 10 months later, I see him, so a year after the cardiac event, and I barely recognize him. He's lost about 20 pounds. And he tells me, "Oh my God, Hélène, I have to thank you." And I'm like, "Don't thank me. You're the one who did all the hard work." He lost 20 pounds. He was working one on one with a personal trainer. So by then he was 80 something. And he told me he's stronger at 80 than he even was when he was 50. He
Yeah.
was telling me he does push-ups and then he does walking push-ups, some push-ups and then walk, and like plank walk, sidewalk.
Yeah.
And he was telling me he was just coming back from his appointment with his doctor who was taking him off his meds.
Yeah. That's like very heartwarming, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But he was
So
also
anything is possible, right?
he was accepting and was willing to accept change, and that's great. I mean, that's very good. But we all have heard the other stories too.
Yeah, absolutely. It takes a special person to say, yes, I'm open to it. And he was a researcher and
He
he
was,
was open to it. But
yeah,
most of all, that book from Caldwell Esselstyn has changed a lot of people's lives. And there's that one, there's Dr. Greger. The China study was a bit thick and a little bit um, more arduous to go through, but very, very powerful. And that was with Colin
I
Campbell.
enjoy that. Yeah, I enjoy that. And also by Colin Campbell, Whole. The book Whole. I
Yes.
read that,
Oh,
and
that's
I
very
enjoyed
good.
that. That's a good book too. But
Yeah.
I enjoy that stuff. I mean, I don't always read it. Sometimes for 2 or 3 months, that's all I read, and sometimes I haven't touched it for many, many months. But I, it stimulates me to acquire new information because that's how we all become educated. We don't automatically know everything there is to know, and the only way we learn it is to educate ourselves. And when you're a kid, you go to school, but when you're older, you got to be self motivated and learn how to educate yourself. And you and myself and a lot of people, that's the way you do it. So I get nutrition facts every day by Michael Greger. I mean, and it's little tidbits of information here or there that is nice to see. Um, yeah, I mean, to me, this it's a total lifestyle change. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's not exercise. It's not. I mean, it's a mindset rejuvenation for me, and it's very invigorating on
It
many
it
different
is
levels.
that's right. It is an exciting journey to be on. And
Yeah.
talking about that, future goals, vision for your life.
Oh gosh,
What what's next for you in terms of health and fitness
I
or
have
other goals?
I have no idea. Just keep challenging me. Just give me something new every few weeks that I can do, and I'll do it. I don't. It's like when I go to yoga every day or two, whatever, and either you get a new instructor or it's a slightly different
Mhm.
type of yoga, so you never really know exactly what you're gonna have. I don't really care. Just give it to me. Just challenge me. I mean, it's something that I enjoy the variety. I enjoy the mystery of what will be, next time around. And as long as I feel good, as long as you provide me something that is going to make me feel good, and I know it's good for me, and I know you're behind my back, and you want me to succeed. That's really
Mhm.
all that counts. So it might not be the answer that you other people might come up with, but it's very open ended. I'm not going to answer that. I don't know.
Well, we know for sure that you've got three grandchildren, right? The ones that were
Yes,
just visiting you. You
yes.
probably want to be able to keep up with them next time they come visit, right?
Keep up with them. They exhaust me. You kidding? I can't keep up with them.
Well,
No,
maybe next time you can exhaust them.
no way in the world. They wake up and they don't slow down until they go to sleep at 7 or 7:30 at night. I mean, they have a boundless amount of energy, and
And
they
she,
wore me out every day. You kidding?
well, maybe it's a goal at least to keep up with them. But in terms of what's coming up next in your program, and we've talked a little bit about this, we've basically been building a base, and we know that we've gone through some challenges where you couldn't exercise, and then life got really busy for you, so we just maintained where you were. And now we're in one phase where we're building again. And then coming up is going to, we've included some balance exercises in this one. There's going to be more balance exercise, some agility and speed training coming up as well, so
Okay.
that it can also help with balance. I'm also thinking about helping to prevent falls, and of course lifting heavy, so that we can put extra stress on the bones to make them stronger and hopefully continue to build bone mass, right? Slow down osteopenia, osteoporosis, whatever. And your bones could be fine. We don't know. I don't think you've done a DEXA scan or
I actually
done.
have done a DEXA scan, and I do have mild osteopenia around the hips. This was done about a year or so ago. But
Oh, good
challenge
to know.
me. My all I ask from you, and I know you will, Ellen, is to challenge me. I know what the concept of progressive resistance is, and just throw at me whatever it will be. I mean,
Jeff is gonna go around with his big guns, lifting these big bags of
no, I
sand in a pickup truck, and
I wish you and I were a lot closer to each other. I just get in my car and drive over there for the day and give you a big hug and pick you up
oh,
and and thank you personally, because that's exactly how I feel right now. A tremendous sense of gratitude, and I just appreciate you to no end. Really.
oh, thank you. That really touches me. Thank you so much. I mean, I've said that to another client as well. I learned from every single client that I have, and it makes me better to have this conversation that I'm having with you, all the conversations that I'm having. And this is all, building to make me a better coach as I'm progressing in my career. Yeah, it's just been such an amazing journey, and I keep looking forward to what are the things to come, and I'm very grateful to have you as a client as well. um, I've got mostly gold stars as client, but some people are just like, I do whatever you tell me to do, which is exactly what you tell me. You give it to me and I do exactly what you tell me, and we see progress. So I love seeing that.
Well, it's
So
it's an attitude. It's an attitude. I mean, and also, when you're dealing with somebody who's quote, a senior citizen. I mean, they've gone through life experiences. They know what works. They know what doesn't work. So it's not like you're dealing with somebody 25 years old who doesn't know anything about anything. I mean, that's why I have gray hair. I mean, you learn something over the years.
you have to have some sign of wisdom in there, right? This is the
Yes,
wisdom.
I guess even have a bald spot, but yeah, whatever the case may be. But yeah.
Oh, well, this is going to be a wrap for today's episode then. So Jeffrey Richer, I keep wanting to say Richer because I'm French Canadian, but Jeff Richer, thank you so much. Huge thank you for joining me and for sharing your honest reflections and powerful progress. It's been such a privilege to be part of your journey and to witness your dedication firsthand. For our listeners, I hope today's conversation has inspired you to see what's possible with consistency, exactly like Jeff, support, and a personalized approach with a fit vegan coach. Whether you're just starting out or looking to level up, remember progress is personal. Showing up consistently is key, and every step counts. If you're curious about what coaching can look like for you, feel free to reach out to the Fit Vegan family. We're an email away at support@fitvegancoaching.com, or you could always visit our website at fitvegancoaching.com. We're always ready to explore strategies for body recomposition that could be in your future. Thanks again for watching and listening. I'm Coach Hélène. Stay strong, stay committed, and keep moving forward.
Thank you.